We've certainly enjoyed our time with Andy Sedaris. While that job is not done, the world is so big. There are police captains nearing retirement every day, and so many fathers are out there seeking revenge through indiscriminate killing. It would be a shame to miss out on all the knowledge these endeavors have to offer. That's why we're going to see what sort of educational material we can glean from Joe, the samurai cop, as we open on Akamura, as he laments that the various LA area gangs aren't making room for one another to prosper together. Yes, but as Yamashita points out, their boss, Fujiyama, only wants to deal with the Chinese to consolidate their power, as he found success by constantly striving to be number one. This brief conversation is a rule and a rehash. 342, which says that a rising tide lifts all boats, and 241. Yamashita? Truly, anyone can be anything at any time. When Fujiyama finally shows up, he struts out like cock of the walk, knowing that his mullet game puts him unquestionably at the top of this pack. As predicted, he grunts out his instructions. Make a deal with the Chinese and kill if they decline. While this weighs heavily on Akamura's heart, Yamashita reminds him that their lot is to follow orders blindly. They confront Mr. Lee to get a quick confirmation that he's a no-go on partnering up with the legendarily violent and erratic Katana gang, and then waste no time being violent and erratic by gutting his little ass in the gut. In fairness, his entourage is clearly more highly skilled, but the presence of guns definitely seems to weigh heavily on the outcome, helping to solidify Rule 62, which was hinted at in the movie Guns. Ninjutsu is no match for heavy iron. We then drop in on police detective Frank Washington, who is chaperoning Joe Marshall, a San Diego transplant who's arrived to pursue a lead that may lead to a huge bust. While he nearly busts out of his hat, we hear that the lead came from the Chinese gang dropping a dime on the Katana for killing their boss. They get their peepers on the blue van in question and call in the helicopter for support. Peggy uses her vantage point to maintain top control. The boys slide around in the muck, hoping to keep tabs on the van from ground level while encouraging Peggy to find the target boat in the marina. It's the white one with the drug dealers on it. The henchmen move ever closer to their objective, none the wiser that the noose is slowly closing on them and they're the ones tightening it. A clean exchange is made, one briefcase of cocaine for one suitcase of cash, plus a bonus duffel bag full of blind boxes, because Fuji-san loves surprises. After getting out of the car for a quick visual confirmation that they're coming this way, Joe gets back in the car to cut them off, forcing them to surrender or run for it. And since they don't know the taste of failure, they're soon zipping through neighborhoods, hoping to create some distance. But if they thought Joe's careful consideration of collateral damage would be a hindrance,
Shoot him!
They soon find out that he don't give a hoot about civilians.
Shoot him!
His clearly articulated instructions, while making himself unhittable within the vehicle, perfectly enables Frank to line up his shots and drop these suckers one by one. Despite their best efforts to evade, Frank can't stop finding his target, thinning them out and eventually setting the driver ablaze. A pretty awesome outcome, but they need a witness to confirm the thugs shot first and deserve to die, so they put him out. Absolutely rock hard from the adrenaline, Joe confirms he'll see Peggy at her house.
You got it. I'll see you back at your place.
Now, you may have noticed that he doesn't have a radio and she's in a helicopter. Plus, he's from San Diego, so how does he even know her or where she lives? But I'll be damned if she didn't get the message, because he soon finds himself inside her. It's easy to watch this and feel as if you're part of the celebratory mood. But what of Fujiyama? This turn of events displeases him and his clan shrinks away under the tension. He's informed that Joe is known as Samurai, speaks fluent Japanese, owns a Neo Geo, and has no less than 3 swords that he keeps in a rack over his bed. Unfortunately, he was sent here to fight them.
To fight me?
Okay, well, you may want to engender a sense of solidarity among the men. He challenges Yamashita to show he is the true samurai by bringing the fallen henchman's head to him.
I will bring you his head and I will place it on your piano.
I mean, I'm not sure that's necessary. As Joe regales his recent sexual conquest with stories of prior sexual conquests, The captain erupts through the doorway and demands they retire to his office to get their asses chewed. But when they enter this magical hallway, they transport to the hospital where they intend to interrogate the burn victim. But since his lips are all burned up, it's gonna be a couple of weeks before he can speak. As a consolation, it appears his nurse is absolutely good to go.
Would you like to touch what you see?
Bingo.
But she's a size queen, and after prodding his package, deems him too miniature for a good ride, and gives him some advice about malpractice insurance pursuant to a likely botched circumcision. Something. I don't know. Dating can be very confusing. And anyway, we already know what he should have said to seal the deal.
4 inches, that's not so hot.
Yes, it is. I measured him from the ground up.
They leave Steve in charge, which is a good move because he is checking on everyone before letting them in, no exceptions. But not checking hard enough as Yamashita emerges slowly from his trash pile. He checks his sword, violating Rule 74, which is to check your tools before arriving at the job, and slowly saws the gentleman's head off. Gross. Once acquired, he submerges back into his hiding spot. This is the best course of action per Rule 156. No one will question a man hiding in trash if he's a doctor. But as they attempt to skedaddle, Steve finds what they did and is immediately on the case. It's a thrilling game of cat and mouse as the Predator does everything he can to abscond with his trophy. Despite being undercover and previously unobserved, Yamashita can't help but to unleash the ninja deep inside of him, repeatedly. Now they make it back to the captain's office. He is absolutely livid about how much destruction has been wrought in just the last week. They can't afford to lose any more officers, so what it sounds like is they just need to move faster? Frank sure puts forth a compelling argument.
Because I need him, we need him, so why don't we just help him and support him? All right?
Yes, we all need more samurai. Despite being on the verge of blowing a vessel, the captain relents. Now that they're back in, they get it on good authority that the leader of the Katana gang hangs out at the Blue Lagoon restaurant. When they arrive, Fujiyama is there conducting a meeting. Joe immediately starts rattling cages to test their reactions. There are personal threats, retaliatory legal recourse from the attorney, and a weird rant from Joe about the difference between good and bad Asians. We also learn,
otherwise, as they say, get the hell out of my face.
People sometimes say that. Before cutting it short, he lays some charm on Jennifer, the object of Fuji-san's affections. Once the seed of future conquest has been planted, he gathers some intel from the host.
Where's her father?
Bang! Who shot him?
He.
Who?
Him.
Who tells them how her dad killed himself
Oh, he committed suicide.
Yes.
in the most insane manner possible. They don't even make it to the car before Yamashita shows up. He likes to test men, so he sends a few of his best boys out to fraud check Mr. Samurai. But this ain't no point sparring, and Joe proves to be an absolute savage. The Katana have a no surrender, no capture policy, which puts them in a sticky situation when the cuffs come out. This guy tries to regain control of the situation, but Joe has gone into a blackout rage. Failing that, Yamashita whips out the Uzi and just starts spraying indiscriminately before grenading their car just to make sure they got the message that he's upset. And then he disappears into the smoke and fog. There's a scene where the captain is confronted by Fujiyama's attorney.
Leave me alone. Get a job.
Lawyer is a job, sir, and that scene existed only to establish the passage of time, since this is a well-thought-out movie, because in the next scene, Joe is back at the Blue Lagoon where a major gunfight just previously occurred. He needed to check if his seed has borne any fruit. He does find out that Jennifer isn't dating old dude. He's a financial benefactor to her and her mom, helping keep the restaurant afloat after her dad died. Then, with no shame and in full view of this lion with some sort of chromosomal disorder, he does his best to secure a date by refusing to take no for an answer. But Jennifer was taught well about steering clear of stallions like him, ridden hard and put away wet, and she rebuffs all advances. On his way out, he runs across the wrecking crew who have been sent to break his legs. Instead, he shows them why his legs are so important to him. They create a tremendous offense and allow him to run down a straggler, who he big brothers into spitting out the name of their employer. He offers up Akamura, one of the Katana's generals Joe hasn't become acquainted with yet. They get the address and close in to make an arrest. After briefly debating whether or not to give him time to pop off in his girl before putting him away, they decide against it. But he has one of those security sticks, so it takes a minute for them to get inside. unlike Akamura. When they do, they pursue him through the house, shooting everyone they see. When Joe gets him cornered, Nakamura's out of bullets and pushing against invisible walls, which is the universal symbol in karate that it's on. Since most of this fight was added in reshoots, they spend a lot of its runtime trying to keep Joe's wig from falling off. After trying and failing to thrash him, Joe aggressively pulls the lion tamer on him, briefly considers murder, and then opts to take him in for arrest. But Murder always finds the wicked as he pulls a slick little maneuver on Frank, leaving them no choice. Back at home base, Yamashita makes sure the boss is all filled in
We have several new enemies.
and lists off all the folks they were already talking about earlier in the film. He then makes an observation
If any of those guys are hurt, they would suspect us.
that emphasizes Rule 351 for us. Never overestimate your enemy. They are all very stupid and have failed to suspect you several times now. You're basically free to do whatever you want. Yamashita wants to bypass suspicion by calling in New York to have them do the killing, but that's stupid. He's stupid for that. Fujiyama recommends they call in New York instead and have their legs broken as punishment, so they'll learn something, even though they won't know what they're being punished for. New York arrives and we discover that breaking legs requires many guns. They appear to be very tough individuals, but were ill prepared for the narrow hallways of California, nor the sharpshooting skills of the samurai. And then, for no other reason than we wanted it desperately, we get to see Robert Zadar straight up boning the red-headed henchwoman. Joe shows up unannounced at church, where Jennifer confirms bras are optional and brings her in for further questioning. But spiriting away with Joe to his beach house hits Fuji's ears with a sour note. Forget legs, the death sentence is back on. But they don't know where he lives, so while he's schmoozing, they're visiting John's domicile dojo for info. Since John and Joe are just acquaintances, not good friends, this is absolutely devastating as they slaughter the young couple for failing to give them what they need. I mean, needs outside of fulfilling personal bloodlust. While making plans to split up and pay Frank a visit, Psycho Steve Carell demonstrates a shocking lack of trigger discipline. While Joe's frolicking on the beach in his high-waisted bikini briefs, Frank is going through it. The boys are so desperate for info and a little horny that they threaten to cut his damn dick off if he doesn't spill. He tells them the address is in the closet, and they're really stupid, so this occupies them for enough time to allow him to take control of the situation. In so doing, he violates Rule 614, never slit a throat at your place. It's nearly impossible to fully clean up, and it ruins all your stuff. But since the couple is still swimming, he is unable to reach them via telephone. Elsewhere, Yamashita and his lads leer at Peggy through the windows, eventually finding a point of ingress so they may accost her in the kitchen. She proves to be more than a handful, and they don't prefer their women like that, so they saute her torso a little at a time until she relents and coughs up an address for Joe. An address where the most perfect date is coming to its natural conclusion. Eating, swimming, competitive swimming, eating again, and then making out to completion. And in this movie, heroes get to finish. So only afterward does Frank call back to warn them right as the crew rolls up. The sacrificial henchman happens to be John Carpenter, who takes one right in the diaphragm. The other fellas are much more agile and cagey, popping out and popping off back and forth. But they don't know the layout like Joe, so he's able to cut through and peel out. And that's it. No chase. We know because Jennifer ends up right back at the restaurant in high spirits, basking in the post-coital glow while her mom admonishes her for upsetting Fujiyama by disappearing all day after he made so many preparations for her birthday. At this point, the captain is at the end of his rope. With his reputation, job, and pension all on the line, he figures it's best to go out with a bang. He gives the boys official clearance to kill them all and let God sort them out. So they take Joe's little red Honda, official car of the samurai, and travel to the main base of operations. Once they arrive, it does not take long for a shootout to ensue. Some obvious combat rules are on display here. First, you gotta cut that corner, my friend, or suffer the back shots. And by all means, never give them the satisfaction of seeing you suffer. Keep a stone face all the way through to the end. We're also beginning to see that all gunplay outcomes seem to be a matter of chance after taking turns firing back and forth. a trio of very important lessons. When they find Fujiyama, he's taken Jennifer hostage, and since she's willing to degrade herself by letting Joe press his bulging, hairy body all over her, he doesn't even like her anymore. Now the age-old conundrum: who can you trust in a standoff? They have to protect Jennifer, and Fuji says he just wants to escape. So they put down their arms, but he proves himself untrustworthy, but also incapable of effective gunmanship. Now 99% of the way there, they just have to deal with Yamashita. When they arrive, Joe again shows that he can't help but to slowly approach open-handed anyone holding a sword, so Frank has to save him from himself. They work their way through, picking everyone off, and the propensity of all the participants to first look off in another direction before zeroing in on the one target in their field of view makes it really hard to ascertain where everyone's at. Finally, arriving after most everyone else is dead, and only after getting his aesthetic just right, does Yamashita finally show himself for the final extended shootout. This leaves them on pretty even footing, but knowing Joe's compulsion to engage in open-hand combat, Yamashita whips out his blade and invites his friend to come play. First, they show off their best tricks to one another, then they put them into practice. After a double disarm, Joe twists him up and goes to town on his shoulder blade, a highly uncomfortable experience. After some more scuffling, he starts to work on a move that, if completed, means Yamashita will never walk again. And that's okay, because the samurai code says that losing equals death. But Frank reminds him that he's a cop first, and cops don't kill. In some cases, where special circumstances apply. Cops, however, do allow seppuku. Samurai code also requires reverence for an honorable death, so they mourn on the beach in all black. I'm glad to have had this time with old Joe, absolutely juicing his boldest figure of all of its sweet, succulent knowledge. Let me know if I missed anything, and if you want to catch up on your lessons before the test, be sure to roll into this video next. Now that we're here, I want to congratulate you for making it to the end of the video, and affirm that you are a very special person because of it. If you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.